Hello and welcome to the Deep Track Podcast, an exploration of watches, trends, and culture with a few adventures along the way. I'm your host, Blake Bettner. This week, I'm thrilled to welcome my friend George Bamford. This is a name that might sound familiar from Bamford Watch Department and Bamford London. He is widely known for his customization of watches, which he's been doing for over 20 years now. We get into a bit of this history in our discussion here, and over the past handful of years, he's been doing it formally for brands like Tag Heuer, Zenith, Girard-Perregaux, Franck Muller, Bremont, and others. We talk about some of these projects as well as how he got into the customization game, how that world has changed over the past couple of decades, and what motivates him to keep going with it these days. Underneath that, George is a big-time watch nerd, so we get into some of the watch trends that are happening in the industry, as well as what he's looking forward to seeing at Watches and Wonders this year. Before we get into the discussion with George, I want to give a quick shout-out to a website called the Strap Hunter. This is where you can go and search all kinds of different straps available from all kinds of different manufacturers in one place. And if you're looking for a specific material or a specific size, this is a great spot to go and see all of them in one place and kind of peruse your options. It's a very cool site. This episode is not sponsored by them. I just recently found it thanks to a fellow member of the Grey NATO Slack. So I wanted to give them a quick shout out. Check it out, straphunter.com for all your strap needs. If you like to customize your watches, but not quite ready to start blacking out the cases and dials and things like that, this is a great spot for you to find your next strap. All right, with that out of the way, let's get into this week's episode with George Bamford. George Bamford, thanks so much for joining me. It's good to see you, my friend. How are you?
It is absolutely amazing seeing you. Congratulations on this this new endeavor. I mean, how cool is that?
Yes.
You're a total rock star, and I'm honestly totally honored. I'm kind of a bit like what was I? A bit of a kind of super fan, so it's kind of cool to be on this, and so thank you very, very much for having me.
Well, I appreciate it. The pleasure is certainly mine, and you can hold it over. I wanted to get you on before Andrew and Adrian, so you can hold that over them all you want.
Absolutely amazing. Wow, that's a new thing from Zoom. So
Yeah, I
you
like
know,
that. So you have, speaking of Andrew and Adrian, you of course had a podcast with them about F and
yeah.
Time. Your experience in this, you're like one of the most active, prolific guys that I've known for a long time in this industry. Maybe give us just a brief introduction of who you are.
Here we go. George Bamford. No, I'm George Bamford, Bamford Watch Department. I started 21 years ago, so I'm that old. And I started in customization watches, and that was kind of my remit. I love watches. My first ever watch I took to bits was in 1996. It was a Breitling Navitimer, and that started my love affair with watches. And so I've been in the watches for ages. I used to go to flea markets and swap watches with other people in flea markets in New York, and I loved it. You'd go up and down New York and find, but what happened was I used to strap hack watches, and that was kind of my background. And then I started customizing watches, and I was probably the punk of the watch world, but I never wanted to ever be that way. I wanted to be kind of this person that loved watches, and just wanted to have them unique to me.
Mm.
And so that was kind of where the business started. And I think always start with what works for you, and hopefully other people will feel the same.
Yeah.
And so I did Bamford Watch Department. Then about six years ago, maybe 7 years ago, 6 years ago, we signed a contract with Zenith and Tag Heuer. That was my like hallelujah kind of like, yes, this is amazing. And we did two watches starting off the back of that. We did a watch with Zenith that was called Solar Blue, and absolutely amazing watch, and that was with Mr. Porter and Zenith. And then we also then did a Tag Heuer Monaco carbon edition, designed by us, created by Tag Heuer, and both of them kind of launch pad for the business to be more working with brands. Now we work with a lot of brands across the board. I've got the Chopard Desert Racer on my wrist. That's a watch we designed with them. I've even got the t-shirt. So
Nice.
I've got the t-shirt. I've got the this. I've got the this. So I am kind of all encompassing on things like that. But My business is my kind of raison d'etre, is probably the way of saying it, is I love about personalization. I love individuality. I love that we've all got our own style, we've got our own vibe. You go to things like Watches and Wonders, and you see everyone has got their own style and they've got their own vibe. And that's what I love. And so personalization, making it totally unique for you makes my heart go f further and faster.
Yeah, I love it. I can't believe it's been 5 or 6 years already since that
Yeah.
happened. Uh, the Breitling that you mentioned, do you still have that watch?
Yes, I
Yes.
do. I should have brought it today. It's in my safe, and honestly, I did a podcast with Justin Hass recently, and you and I are good friends of Justin's, and I brought it and showed him, and he is just like, "This is absolutely damaged," and I went, "Yeah." And basically, I got given the watch on Christmas, and Boxing Day it was in pieces. And I, because I'm highly dyslexic, my reading and writing is not good, so I learn by doing.
Hmm.
So these are my kind of, sorry, I'm talking about my hands. My hands are my kind of, they're the senses I use. I use my eyes and I use my hands quite a lot to kind of understand things.
Yeah.
And so that's basically how my parents um, probably thought I was an absolute nutter, but I used to go at home. I'd wake up. I'm an early bird. Well, actually, I probably don't sleep much, but I used to take TVs to bits, and I used to take toasters or juicers. I used to make juicers faster, and I used to. So every morning, my parents were like, "Christ, what's going to blow up at home?"
Hmm.
So that's kind of where I was. I'm a frustrated engineer, but I used to always want to figure out how things worked. And so I learned how to build an engine. I learned how to weld when I was 8, 9. So that was kind of my kind of world. And so watches, I don't know, I love the idea of this thing that has a heart that beats, and then I could take it to bits. And all I had was a penknife, a glasses screwdriver, and a towel on the floor. And I think I had some tweezers as well, and that's how I took the watch to bits.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it's got dents, it's got cracks. The hands have been replaced 3 times. The glass has been replaced twice. And it isn't. It's honestly, as the English people will say, knackered, but it's absolutely. It's been back to Breitling a hell of a lot of times, and I'm sure the guys at Breitling are like, please don't ever send this back. And during
Yeah,
COVID,
yeah.
I tried to teach my son how to do watches, and I brought out this watch, and I was like, I feel like it's on its last legs. It's one of those things where I'm like, it's one of those people that's like literally been through the marathon, and then it's like, yeah, we're going again. And so I was like, and I brought it out in COVID, and I said, oh, and he just looked at me and was like, really? So then we were doing pocket watches, and we were taking those to bits, but
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
kind of like,
I love that. The pocket watches, I think, are it's an easier thing to understand just because the scale of them is just like a little bit bigger. I remember that being
yeah,
the first thing that I saw that my dad had that you could like open up the back and look at it and
yeah,
see very clearly what's happening. And that was kind of like an instant like hook for me. So this Breitling is fascinating to me because it's, the genesis of it all. And,
yeah.
you mentioned that this was in the 90s. Were there other people, was there a scene out there of people customizing watches or doing anything
Well,
like
I
this
look,
at the time?
I was a kid. I was a kid, so I'm not that old. I think you and I are roughly the same age. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I was a kid at that time. So what I would say to you is, yes, I'm sure there was, but for me, there wasn't a Reddit group or whatever it is. There wasn't many forums, and also, for me, it was the old big trackball Apple computers, and there was there wasn't much that you could connect into a community. So it was just learn by doing.
Yeah.
And so I don't I thought probably I understood the watch world to a degree. I understood that there was big players and small players, and I understood all these things. And I understood my parents' friends having different watches. I think there was a Frank Muller at the time and a Hublot MMID, I think, or MMD, but I remember those were the watches that were the kind of the cool watches at the time. And the first serious watch I had before the Breitling was a Formula One by Hoya. That was a rigid. the original with the aluminum dial.
Yeah.
That was my first original watch.
Okay. Okay.
But you ask about a community. I don't know. I don't think so. At the time I felt like I was a lone ranger, and I went into photography. As a photographer, I realized there was another thing that really excited me, and that was developing, and I learned how to do photography and develop the film, and I love the history of photography. I love Man Ray, and I loved cameras, and I loved that side as well. So I had these two things that were kind of a juxtaposition inside me. So when I lived in New York, I was studying at art college in New York. I was studying at Parsons,
Mm,
and my side hustle, well, not side hustle, but basically, I would get money at the beginning of term from my parents, and I'd spend it on a watch, and then I would kind of
sure.
go and trade that watch on and on and on and on and on because I'd strap hack it or do whatever, and then by the end of the term, it would be a totally different or semester. It would be a totally different watch.
Mm. I love that idea. So from here, from the Breitling, did you like how did it grow into? Oh, now I like this is something that I could do for business. And I guess you kept doing it with
Um,
watches that you came across, right? And
yeah.
it
So
eventually
what
got to the
happened?
point of like, oh, these are really cool.
Yeah, what happened was, I it sounds really stupid, but it I think it was the what happened was I got given. So there was a Concorde d'Elegance. So if anyone doesn't know what a Concorde d'Elegance is this is when beautiful cars get judged by people that believe that they know everything about cars, and they say that's the winner. And at the time, Tag Heuer was the sponsor. So the winner got a Monaco. And I was sitting in the car of the winner. And the winner went to me and said, "Oh, you know, I don't like Tag. I'm into this." Or, it was one of those kind of like, "Why didn't you have that?" And I was like, "Yay, this is awesome."
Yeah.
And the thing was, I loved it, and I wore it for like a year, and I was like, "This is so freaking cool." And then I heard about the Dark Lord, and that is a full black Monaco,
Yeah.
and it was a painted black Monaco, and I was just like, "Hell yeah, I want to do a black Monaco." So I found a process, and it was a coating, and it was up in Scotland, and it was this kind of weird and wonderful process company. And I remember going up and seeing them, and I mean, literally, it looked like the mad scientists. It was like these two Scottish guys in white lab coats, and it kind of looked a bit kind of like, and you saw steam coming out of this chamber,
Nice. Nice.
and it was like you put something in, and it was like, and you saw this, and then this steam came out. I was like, is that safe? And they're like, yeah, kind of. We used it for drill bits, and we used
Love
it,
it. Yeah.
and I was like, okay, perfect. And I took the watch to bits and put the case in there, and it came out black, well, kind of bluey black.
That's
And I was
cool.
like, oh, this is cool. And then I put the watch back together. Maybe it was radioactive. I didn't know, but it was black. And I didn't know how to customize dials, but I was just like, this is so freaking cool. And I wore it one summer, and everyone was like, could you do that for this? Could you do it for this? Could you do it for this? And at the time, I had a Hotmail account,
Yeah.
and I just gave them my Hotmail email, and I said, hey guys, if you want it, I could look into it for you. So then I
Yeah.
started kind of doing this, and it was like, which watch, what happens, and it started the business
Hmm.
in such a kind of weird and wonderful way because it was just by demand. It wasn't, I never thought I was a photographer. I was just like, my trajectory was photography.
Do
And, my side hustle was customizing watches, but my side hustle before that was trading watches, but not really as a trader, more as a kind of like enthusiast.
Yeah. Do you still practice photography? Is that something that you're still into? Is that something you still do in your free
Every
time?
year I do my family Christmas card. That's it.
That's it. That's it. Okay.
And
Your
and
family
they are
Christmas card.
elaborate. They are nuts. I mean, like literally, they are. I don't know. Are you putting out the recording or not of
It,
this? The video.
not the video of it. No,
Okay, so I can show you an image because I never show my family.
you never show your family.
No, I know, no, because but
Oh wow. Okay. Okay. I love this, and this kind of says a lot about your
Yeah.
personality. And this is
So
so this is your inspiration for your family photo.
no, this is my family photograph,
That's actually the
and this
family.
this is this year's one.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay.
So that was this year's and last year's. So last year's was Alice in Wonderland, and you can see that I'm in the.
Oh yeah, you can see it now. Yep. It looked like a
So
painting from from this
so
pic-
and even my son's rat is on the table somewhere. I don't know where the rat is. And each thing, each part of my family is in it. So it's and I do these elaborate Christmas cards because I find it's the only time I can be creative. So I used to be setting up big setups and all these different things. So I was always my mind was always spinning fast.
Yeah, I love it. So now, as you mentioned, you've got kind of a formal working relationships with some of these brands, and
Yeah.
with Zenith and Bulgari, some all the LVMH brands. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
Chopard. So I've got Chopard, I've got Bremont, Joe Perrigo, well, and Patrick Pinot. So we do stuff with those guys.
Hmm.
Frank Muller. So we did the Frank Muller Snoopy. I'm trying to think. G-Shock. So we've done two G-Shocks, potentially another one coming sometime soon, I pray.
Okay.
And we've got some other brands coming on board that are kind of going to us and saying, "Hey, we'd like to do something."
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've got some formal relationships that are happening. We also do some stuff behind the scenes as well for certain brands. So on both sides, we're having, I'm having fun on the customization, and then I'm kind of talking about something else. We have Bamford London,
Yeah.
that is our what I would say is kind of semi well, it's fully customizable. But and also we've had a demand from a client to build an actual watch for him as well. So the actual case and figure out all that. But Bamford London is you can customize it online, like our Bamford Watch Department. And but people are kind of putting their logos on GMTs and things like that. So Bamford GMTs, and we've got another watch that I'm developing. So that's my kind of itch.
Hmm.
Is I so I take existing design, what I would say, architecture, and put a spin on it. That's what I do for the watch brands, and then I do customization for them. We're also in-house, so we do in-house customization inside Zenith boutiques, and then Bamford London is like ready to wear with a twist on it.
Sure. Sure. So this is so. It's taken about 20 years, and now you have all these formal relationships. Clearly, there's a part of industry that has embraced
Yeah,
this
never
side
thought
of
it would
things.
happen.
At what point did that shift over? Did you notice like, oh, this is going, because I'm assuming there was some difficult days in the early days where brands were less than ecstatic about this kind of thing
Um,
happening, to where now it's kind of like, oh yeah, this is like a part
I'm
of it.
okay. So I never thought I'd be where I am here today. Okay, so I'm going to say to you is I never thought my vision of visions is never where I never thought. I had sleepless nights where I thought big brands would come and just take me out.
Yeah.
So that was always my fear. And you should never live in fear in life. You should live in life ahead of you and just enjoy where it goes. But then I would also say, so the changing point was, um, it was a very poignant time. I, I'd become friends with Jean-Claude Biver,
Hmm.
and he said something to me. He said, look, you could be like Kodak and you could be irrelevant in this watch world because a lot of brands will start doing personalization because it'll be on trend. It will be the future where the brands will go. And he said, either you come and work with us, and he was in charge of Zenith and Tag Heuer at the time,
Hmm.
or you carry on doing what you're doing, but you will become irrelevant. And I was just like, and it settled in my mind. It just made me go, oh, okay, yeah, actually, you when you sit and you know this, but when you sit and listen to him, you go, wow. There's something he puts this little chestnut in there, and then it's going to grow into this tree, and you can't. It's almost an itch.
Yeah.
And I, it sounds really bad, but I was kind of umming and ahhing, and I should have jumped straight on this at the time, going, yeah, let's do it. And I went through a lot of crap with my son. So my son was being born, and I almost lost my wife and I almost lost my son in the space of 24 hours.
Oh my.
So I had to sit in the hospital for 24 hours. Well, it was actually 48 hours. I didn't sleep. I watched my son coming back to life. And this was on birth, and it was, there was always these wonderful little violins in life, and they're poignant points. And during the time of this, I had messages from two or three clients. Now, as I always say, clients can get on without us. We can't get on without them. So that's another kind of stamp in, it's a tattoo on my arm almost. It's kind of like, customers make the payday happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I had this really quite tough message from a client saying, where is this? And, you've felt, and really kind of like going, of course, what we'd happened was his watch had got trapped in a helicopter door, and he damaged the bracelet and he wanted it back. And there was, and, first world problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I got that message, and then I got a beautiful message from Jean-Claude saying, "I hope all is good. I heard there may be an issue. We're here. We love you. Just keep the path going." Something along those lines. I can't remember
Yeah.
the exact wordings, but it was a message. And almost well, not overnight. It was within about 10 minutes or 20 minutes. At the end of all this, I got home, got into bed after 48 hours. I had a shower and whatever, and then got into bed, and then kind of about the next morning, but it wasn't the next morning. It was midway through the day. I I just messaged him and said, let's sign this contract. Let's do.
Yeah.
What do we need to do?
Mm-hmm.
And and I'm describing it in probably a very kind of telescoped or microscoped way. But there was a lot of kind of circles around circles on that situation.
Yeah. But that was the
But
heart of it.
but that was the heart of it.
Yeah.
And what I would say to you is that at that point, in anyone's life, in anyone's situation, you kind of have to kind of take a look at yourself and go, well, what do I want? You talk about pivoting. You've pivoted into another world, but the world
Yeah.
and I think it's healthy to do that. It's healthy to look at the past to then kind of know where you want to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and it's one of those things that I love, being out of the shade and in the sun. It's quite a beautiful place to be.
Hmm.
Being invited to watch some wonders, going to see, you know, I mean, I know it sounds strange, but going to meet people like Chris Granger or Julien Tonnet, and I can list, being at GPHG and giving it away, going to Dubai Watch Week and hanging out with you. All of those things wouldn't have happened if I was the I don't know what the hell it is. There's loads of comments about what I was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I'm kind of loving where I sit,
Yeah.
because I get to kind of have fun, and I get to kind of enjoy working. Davide Ceretro from now Bremont, but he is, I mean, the first time I ever met him, I met at Basel World. And I remember having a sausage with him, and I was like, this guy is another god. And
Yeah.
and now I get to work with him. I'm like Jean-Claude Beaver. I get to work with him. I get to work with these design people, and it's freaking cool.
Yeah, it is. There's some great people behind the scenes here. You mentioned a couple of my favorites there. Julian, who of course
Yeah.
recently made the switch over to Tag Heuer
Yeah.
from Zenith. I think he had built so much momentum there at Zenith. I really
Yeah.
love what they're doing, and I still love what they're doing. And of course, the fellow that was with Panerai has come over to fill in his shoes, and Tournaire has gone over to Tag Heuer. You
Yeah.
mentioned Chris Granger as well. And it was something I was going to bring up because when I was in Dubai, I went over to the mall and into the IWC boutique, which is a really cool experience. They've got a Mercedes F1 car in there, but they have like this customization tray for I think the
Yes.
Portugueser, and it's got like all these different like the cases, all the different dials, and it reminded like I thought of you straight away when I saw it because it was basically like customize this
What
watch, like build it your way, kind of a
and
thing.
and and does that feel what would I say? Does that feel very what Jean-Claude said?
Yes, yes, and that's exactly what put it into my head, and I think they only have it in a couple of their boutiques, and I feel like this has got to be a thing that is going to be everywhere. And the small thing that I've noticed a lot of brands building like quick release straps so that you can
Yeah.
put on a custom strap because
You
that's a
can strap hack it
simple
yourself.
thing,
Yeah.
yeah, and people can do it, and I think that's great. And then I see that a lot of brands don't back it up with a tons of wild strap options. They just,
Yeah.
it's like they're still kind of getting to that. Yeah, I feel like when is it going to be the point of where you walk into an Apple store and you go to the Apple Watch section and there's 1,000 different bands and they different like styles, materials, and how they affix themselves, like all that kind of stuff. Surely this kind of thing is coming to a lot of boutiques, right?
I think the other thing is, so I love when a brand does it so then it's easy to strap hack.
Yeah,
A lot of brands are spending an absolute fortune on how to put on the strap to this because it's a good, if you think someone can come back and back and back and put another strap on because they're going to buy exclusively from you because you've got the ultimate way of putting it together. But my thing is, I want people to feel different. I mean, I I I just got a Bark and Jack strap for a customer for one of their watches. They just went, really love this ribbed Bark and Jack strap,
yeah.
and I put it on the watch, and it looks absolutely amazing. I mean, the client came in today. I'll quickly show you an image on the wrist here.
Oh
I don't
yeah,
know if you
these are fantastic straps. We'll leave a link to these down below. I've got a couple of Bark and
yeah.
Jack straps as well. He does great work.
But that's what the client wanted.
Yeah,
Now, I've got multiple NATO straps, multiple. But if the client wants that, hell yes. I'm like, that's you that I'm not adverse to anything in because I want the client to be happy.
yeah, yeah.
And it looks so damn good on that watch, and it looked, and it was just like, yeah, done.
And Adrian's a friend, right? So
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly, exactly. So it's a good place to be.
yeah,
Um, Now I know that you wanted to talk about like some trends and some things, and I know that we kind of went very deep, very dark almost, and then we're coming back out the other side because I feel really bad that I kind of went into that, but I wanted you to understand why my brain switched very quickly. It's almost like overnight, but it wasn't. And a lot of people have gone, well, why would you change? And I was just like, yeah, there's a reason that,
yeah,
it felt right.
yeah,
But the other thing I wanted to kind of talk to you is kind of, and maybe you and I love this, is I love going down rabbit warrens or rabbit holes on discovery,
yes,
and looking at watches or brands or finding things that you go, oh my God, there's that, or there's, or design. I mean, like a Zenith surf dial, surf watch, or their electronics, or I love kind of it feels like I am finding country music for the first time, or I'm finding, I don't know, a real kind of obscure little like I don't know, acid jazz or something. I'm finding this
yeah,
real kind of little kind of nuance niche thing,
yeah,
and I'm going hell freaking yes.
yeah,
Um, and that's kind of what I wanted to slightly kind of drop into because I could promote the business, I could chat about how all the things are, but I kind of love that. I love this weird way. I think you do as well.
Yeah, I do. And there's certain eras that I find even like particularly interesting. And, like the late 90s to early 2000s, I
Yes.
felt like it was kind of this sweet spot where
Yeah.
some brands were still kind of fighting their footing, but a lot more risks were being taken. And
Yeah.
there's one watch you mentioned Zenith, the Rainbow Flyback
Yes.
from 97 is one of those watches that's like, what is this? Like it's got this great
Yeah.
story to it, and it's all kinds of weird. And I feel like we went through this whole period of um, okay, let's go back into our back catalog and bring back some of these historical
Yeah.
designs, and we'll kind of make them. And that's great. And I think some great watches have come out of
Yeah.
that. But I do kind of miss that spark of like, and I think this is starting to come back of like
Yeah.
weird watches or like what is going on here, where it just kind of begs you a closer look, right? And you come across some watches, especially from the late 90s or whatever, and you can't help but kind of fall into that hole of
Well,
researching.
do you know, I there's an itch that I carry on scratching is digital and quartz movement watches.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everyone goes to me and goes, "Are you effing mad?" And I'm like, no. And I just got this book on eBay. And it's about watches, but it's digital watches. And there was only X amount in circulation. It has things like Hamilton, the digital watch, it has all the different digital watches. But I've done a new discovery, and this is a brand that and I don't know if you know about them. I have now done a lot of research on it. I've actually found the original family that owned the brand,
Oh wow.
and I've been chatting to them because I freaking love what they do, what they did. And it's a brand called Nipro. Now,
Nepro, Nepro.
yep, Nipro. And they're kind of like they were the backbone for the Swiss digital and that's digital display watches. They were the ones that were the suppliers around that time, so they
Of
did
like the
most of
modules inside.
yeah, the modules, but then they built their own ones.
Okay, okay.
And so they did some very interesting solar powered digital watches, and they're a defunct brand, but they are what I mean defunct. They haven't done anything for so long, and I found it in this watch book, and I've now just gone down this real kind of down to finding the original man and chatting to him, not because I want to buy the brand or do anything like that. I'm just like, I want to find out what the hell were they doing? Why did it really change on them? And the reason why the business changed on them was because of the Swatch industry, and because of the digital, that was quartz became readily available and became, but they were like the godfathers on these things. So they were probably, I'm not saying this, but probably the godfather for some of the real kind of iconic digital watches of that era.
Yeah.
They were the ones that provided the logical side of it.
Incredible. So you've tracked down a lot of their watches and the
Yeah.
people behind it. How does this kind of stuff affect like because I know that underneath all of this, and I was gonna say like you're a watch nerd through and through, just
Oh,
like all of us.
oh, hell
Like
yes. Hell
um
yes.
and the first time that I realized this, well, I think I've always known this about you, but when we were at the IWC Engineer preview event in London
Yeah.
a couple of years back, a year and a half ago, or whatever it
Yeah.
was, and we were talking about some of the older ones, and then you started to pull out different old references from your coat, from you. You had like three different generations of engineer, just like
No,
in your coat
well,
pockets, and you
I
started
think
referencing.
I had eight different generation. I've got eight different generations of the engineer. I think the engineer is an amazing thing, and you think about the Gerald Genta design, and what I love what God, I'm boring myself. I love that there is so many generations, so many designs of it, but I love what Chris Granger and IWC have done is they've solidified the ultimate of the ultimate of the ultimate version.
Yeah, yeah,
Because if you look at it, the quartz one was the best version, but the movement wasn't the best, and there was all the other things. The anti-magnetic one was the worst bracelet, the worst deployment, and also the dial combinations were never amazing. The quartz one was amazing. So what Chris has done is put those two together and make the amazing engineer.
Yeah, yeah,
Sorry, I'm digressing, but that's why and I've been begging for ages, Chris, to bring the engineer back because I was
yeah.
just like, it deserves something that's amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I think they did a good job with it as well. And I like that they didn't just recreate the original like one to one.
Yeah.
I like that they made kind of a modern version of it, and I think that will provide a foundation for them to build on for the coming
I tell you,
generations.
I can't wait to see where it goes.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine? Anyway, I can't. I'm like this. I'm going. Please, we need this. We need this. We need this. We need this. And I have a feeling that we're going to be seeing some wicked stuff at Watch and Wonders.
Yeah, I hope so. You're going to be there, right?
Yeah, I'm there for one day. I know it sounds strange, and I should probably say it's expensive.
Yeah.
Staying in Watch and Wonders, around there, hotels, all those different things. Um, England to Switzerland is very easy. So I fly in the morning. It's right by the airport. You
Yeah.
walk over, spend the day rocking around with people, and then you're out in the evening. And the reason why I like doing it that way, and I've done it for years like that, is because I did it with About Every Time last year. I stayed there,
Hmm.
and I was like, it's punchy, but it's also I'm having meetings with people that I would normally have meetings with them at their factory anyway. So I go
Yeah.
over for a day anyway. So it's more I want to go and see the watches. I'm a watch geek. I go around every stand. Everyone goes to me and goes, no, you're having meetings. And I'm like, no. I'm having 2 hours to go around every stand. I don't want to miss out on one thing. And even my team are like, but George, you're there for me. And I'm like, no. I'm there because I want to fill that coffee cup up with the future of the watches.
What do you hope to see this year?
Um, I don't well, I have I have a hunch. No, do I have a hunch? No, I don't have a hunch. I just think to myself, I think it's going to be an odd year. I don't know what you think, but I look at this year and I think it's going to be an odd year. I think there'll be one or two big like knockout blows from brands. I think there will
Hmm.
be those who will be like, wow, I think it's an odd year for brands because I think there has been something where, there's been a little bit of a cooling, not a massive cooling, but a bit of a cooling on the market. I think that's my gut saying this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think if I looked at it, most brands would be moving up in price they'll be hitting their top echelon of customers because they know that they're the ones with disposable income. So I think if I look at it, I would imagine a lot of brands bringing more complications in, more gem setting. That's what I think.
Mm.
That's where my gut would kind of say if I was a betting man, I would go to you and say complications, flyback chronographs, tourbillons. Um, I would hope, and this is where I hope, but I don't think it will happen. Is new materials. I
Yeah.
wish,
Yeah.
I wish that brands would come out with something that no one else has thought of. When Panerai came out with the Bronzo and everyone went, wow.
Hmm.
I don't I want I would love to see that needle being moved so much further forward,
Yeah. Yeah.
of new materials, ultra lightweight, rocket fuel materials that you just go, wow, that's amazing. That's where I would see. I don't know what would you say? Sorry, I've
No,
been
I
waxing
I
on.
agree. I think you're on the right track there, and I think that like the use of different kind of quote unquote exotic materials has kind of been democratized over the past like 10
Yeah,
years. So now everyone, maybe not everyone, but like a lot of the smaller micro brands that are coming out, you can get a full titanium through and through watch for
yeah,
$1,000 now, and I think this is great. And even forged carbon watches,
yeah.
you're
Well, I
seeing
do a forged carbon watch, and
you've
I've
got a
done
forged carbon watch
a luminous in
with the yes,
kind of.
yes. I'll put a link to
And
that
so
down
I've
below.
got
I
a
wrote about
luminous
that
case as well. So the forged carbon has got a luminous thread through it.
in the case. Yeah.
And And so these are the things. What I'm saying to you is, but I want to see magnesium, ultralight
Well,
white weight
that's what I'm saying. I
magnesium.
think that that's forcing other brands to like,
Yeah,
okay, now we got to like do something, and that's like Serotanium, like
yeah,
Saxum, and like all these
yeah.
crazy things that you're seeing. And I love seeing that kind of stuff. That's kind of
But
what's
I don't know
going
if
on
I'll
here.
see it this year.
You
I
don't
think
think
I'll
we'll see it
see
this year? I think it'll
more.
be okay.
No, that's my gut. But what do you see this year? What does your gut say?
I mean, I've definitely felt the trend over the past few years of brands kind of pushing further and further up market. I mean, I
Yeah,
hope to see brands kind of focus more on some of their simple stuff, like
yeah,
JLC, for instance. Like, I would love to see
yeah.
a deep sea alarm or something like that. I don't know, like kind of leaning into those parts of the
Master
future.
compressor.
Yes, like how cool would that be?
The old school master
Yeah.
compressor. I'm like hell fucking sorry, hell effing yes.
Yes, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I hope to see, but I have a feeling that you're right. A lot of brands are kind of like moving into these kind of safe spaces for them.
uh,
And I've seen previews
prob
of some of the brands, so I'll kind of leave that
oh,
off the
okay.
table. So,
Okay,
um,
I haven't, and that's the interesting thing is I haven't. I just my gut says if I was a brand X this year, and I've got a good stable of customers, I would aim at the top echelon.
yeah,
I'd be doing golds, diamonds. But you've already seen it from AP. Look at the price points. That's really what I'm saying is you look at what they've just done with um my oh my God, my
with
brain's
John
just
Mayer.
gone. Yeah, John Mayer. There we go.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
sorry, John. I absolutely love you. Beyond belief. I love your music. You're amazing. My brain literally just went. I was like, oh, when it kind of freezes frame and you're like going, ah. So anyway, but the John Mayer. Look at the materials. Look at where they're going. The complications.
yeah,
You're already starting to see that trend happening from one of the major brands out there.
mm,
I could imagine I don't know, Sky Moon, there's a Sky Moon Tourbillon from Patek to come out with the new one, or another advanced technologies Nautilus, or
yeah,
whatever it is. I could imagine that. I could. That's where I look at. AP's already started to tick that box. Breitling came out with their Victoria Beckham watch with the gold version.
yeah.
Those are things where you're already so I'm not a soothsayer, or I haven't seen the future. It's already starting to happen, and these two are trending ahead of the time because they're not exhibiting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree with you. Well, when I see you on the floor at Watches and Wonders, I'll come and get your first impressions. and uh,
You're
and
like, you were right, or
you're
you
right.
were totally wrong. You were nuts. What
Yeah,
were you thinking?
yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, George, I want to be conscious of your time. It's been just an honor as always to talk to you for a little bit. Where can people go find more? Are you on Instagram? Where can I send
Instagram,
people to go
Bamford
find
Watch
more of you?
Department, and where else? Go onto our website, and I'm here. I love communicating, love chatting, love doing it. And of course, and I'm going to say this: if you ever want me back on, hi, I'm here.
All right,
Um,
we'll do.
uh, but you rock, and really I love this, and I loved hanging out with you in Dubai. I mean, like, that was freaking cool, and
Yeah,
I
that was
can't
a lot
wait to
of
see
fun.
you at Watch Some Wonders. That's going to be fun anyway, because I think it's when it almost feels like the first race of Formula One. It feels like the band's back together, but it's like the big band's back together.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I can't wait to see you there. Beers on me, if we can
Oh yeah.
find time, and we'll get us all back together here on the podcast sometime soon. That will do it for this episode. Thank you to George. A reminder that again we will be at Watches of Wonder, so feel free to get subscribed if you want to keep up with all the news coming from there. All right, that'll do it for this episode. Until next time, take care.
Bye.